So there we go. All right, so I'm gonna fire this up for you guys here. Um, I would like to welcome you all to the Nature and Well-Being webinar. My name is Kevin O'Shea, and I am an educator based in China, currently in Japan, and that is something I'm going to go into a little bit shortly, the kind of whole context of why I decided to put this presentation together. Yeah, so what I wanted to talk about tonight is nature and well-being, and the power that the everyday nature around you can do for your well-being, making you feel better. So first a little bit about who I am. My name is Kevin O'Shea, and if you are a Twitter person, I think a lot of folks who are here might know a little bit about me. I am a Canadian educator. I've been in international education for 18 years now. I've taught in South Korea, Japan, and now China. I am an early years educator and a nature educator. So I'm based in Shenzhen, China, which is right across the bay, right across the water from Hong Kong in mainland China. And I was there for just not that long, half a school year. So I am a China-based teacher, but I'm currently in Japan. Right now I'm coming to you from Osaka, Japan. And I'm here because of COVID-19, that thing that has turned our education world upside down. And the world of everyone upside down, just everyone's world. So a little bit of context. I'm very passionate about connecting children with nature and their families with nature. And this is something that for most of my career, I've been extremely passionate about, because I feel that for me personally, what I can do to help the world, to help the environment, is to nurture a love of the natural world in children. And in my hopes, when they grow up, they're going to be passionate about nature and want to do something about it and protect it and keep it safe. So that's what I'm all about. I'm all about bringing nature to kids and kids to nature. And the majority of the time I've been an educator, I've been working in urban environments. And a lot of the children I work with don't have an opportunity to have contact with nature. They don't have a chance to put their feet in a stream. They don't have a chance to catch crayfish with their hands. They live in a very urban environment, and their parents also often have a disconnect from the outdoors. So what I do, and you can see me there wearing my goofy mantis costume up in Beijing. I love to bring bugs to kids. I love to bring kids out to bugs. I love to bring kids to birds, birds to kids, and all of this. So this is my thing. Now, again, a little bit of context. I know we're all impacted by what's been going on with COVID-19. I myself, and I have a wife and two children, we were living in Shenzhen, and during the Chinese New Year, which was near the end of January, we learned that our school would not reopen in February, and we would be moving on to online learning. Right now, as of tomorrow, I'm about to start week 16 of online learning. It's been quite a journey. It's been a lot of ups and downs for my family. We now live for the last 3 months in a one-room apartment in Osaka, Japan. There's 4 of us in a one-room apartment. We're Zooming all over the place. Both of my kids are doing Zoom lessons. I'm doing Zoom lessons. It's been a very stressful time. At one point, we tried to re-enter China to our home through Malaysia, bought airplane tickets. Malaysia closed the borders. We didn't get refunds. Then we tried to get back into China, but then China closed the borders. And now here we are, waiting. So what I want to talk to you about is a little bit about my passion for nature and how that's actually kind of, in a way, saved me in recent times, and how it's going to help you a lot. And it's about the everyday things that we don't often notice. So this year, before I left, earlier on in the year, in January, I've been planning for quite some time to put together an organization called Nature Shenzhen. And the whole idea is to connect the community of Shenzhen with nature and the outdoors. It's easy to get buy-in with children. Children do love the outdoors. They do love nature. They do love bugs. They do love all of those neat, fascinating things. And one thing I always like to jokingly say as an early years teacher or an elementary teacher is that if you want to be the most popular teacher in the building, be the bug guy. So I'm a bug guy. I'm an entomologist. I'm also into birds. So it's always been easy to win over kids, but what I wanted to do was win over their families too. Children need opportunities to connect with the outdoors outside of school, and you need parent buy-in for that. So parents need to understand the importance and the wonders of nature to get that buy-in. So I was in the process of creating an organization, and you can see some photos here where I was creating something in a series called Community Nature Walks, where I would bring families, children outdoors, and do an introduction to birding and walk them around our community and teach them about the birds that they see every day, but don't see, the things that they don't notice, to put a face to it. And these were really empowering and wonderful. I would teach the parents and the children about invasive species of plants and animals. It was often really cool. The parents were shocked that their children knew these things, but they didn't. So this is where I was going before COVID-19. I had a lot of big plans for my Nature Shenzhen group. Those will come into play. Those will happen in the future. I want to talk a little bit about wildlife for just a moment. These are two photos that I took. The butterfly is called a tropical fritillary butterfly. That's a bit of a mouthful. And I took that picture in Japan a few years ago. The bird you see is called a black kite. And this was my spark bird. This was a bird that got me as a 31-year-old teacher who had just moved to Japan many years ago into birding. This gorgeous, beautiful, giant raptor. I would see them every day outside of the school I taught at, flying over the water, hunting, looking for fish. And this is the bird, and we call them spark birds in birding, the bird that pulled me in and just held me. So this was an everyday bird that I saw when I would take my students to the playground, soaring above overhead in the thermals. And I was amazed. I thought, how can that bird fly for so long without flapping its wings? What's going on here? And I started doing a bit of research, and I got into birding. Now, by the way, guys, if you have any questions, please leave them in the chat feature. I'm going to make this a bit more abridged than I planned because of the technical difficulties. So again, I apologize. So right now during this time of COVID-19, I realize that some places are kind of normalizing, but many places are still living in a very different world where most things are closed and you don't have the options to do things that you once did. So right now, more than at any time before, people in America, in Canada, in different places in the world where lockdowns are maybe a bit looser, are getting outdoors and walking. Shopping malls are closed, restaurants are closed, shops are closed. People are getting outdoors. So one very interesting thing I've been learning about through the American Birding Association, the Audubon Society, is that at least in North America, more people are getting into birding than at any other time. And what is birding? Well, it's looking at birds and learning about them and observing. A lot of people are spending so much time at home, and now they're looking out at their back window and they're noticing things that they've never noticed before. They're seeing things that they've never noticed before. Now, these birds, these animals, were always there. They've always been there, but now people are noticing them because they have that time, and they're kind of pivoting their perspective and looking at the world in a very different way. So that's the key, looking at things in a different perspective. So I know right now that as I show this slide, I know Kavita is watching this right now, Kavita Tana of Inspire Citizens, who was actually one of the inspirations behind me putting on this webinar tonight. She had invited me to speak with a group of educators in the United States recently about the power of nature. And I thought to myself, well, let's talk to more people about this. So I have a term I like to say, I call this nature goggles. I like to wear my nature goggles. And yeah, I know that's kind of like little kid speak, but there's something behind it. It's kind of about a pivot in your perspective. Now, this is a picture of my daughter a few years ago, and she is holding the shell of a cicada nymph. Cicadas are fascinating creatures. If you live in Japan, if you've ever been to Japan in the summer, their sound is deafening, and they're really neat. A cicada only lives for a couple of weeks, and they drop their eggs at the base of a tree. They turn into little tiny nymphs that we can't really see. They burrow about a foot into the ground, and they'll live there for 7, 9, 17 years, always prime numbers for whatever reason. That's something a lot of scientists are still scratching their heads about. And then they emerge. Imagine that, after 17 years in the dirt. You crawl out, you live for a week, and you die. So nature goggles, that's all about a different perspective. So I want to share with you this picture. Now, my family and I have been in Osaka, Japan for 3 months. Now, just to give you a little bit of background, my wife is Japanese. My wife is from Osaka. I did live here for 10 years in Japan. So, this is my second home, my wife's home. You might also be saying, how can you be there for 3 months? Well, I still have what they call a spousal visa. When I first got here, I was in a really bad place emotionally because of everything from COVID-19. I think for the first time in my life, I possibly was suffering from depression. Something I don't know if it was, I guess so. I was basically unhappy all the time and very stressed. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. It was really hard to do my job. Everything was really hard. But in a recent month or so, I really changed my perspective, and I've gone back to my roots. I'd have forgotten almost about my passion of my love of nature, my love of bugs, my love of birds, my love of the small things in life that I'd always cared about. So outside of my apartment, where we are now, you can see this space. Now, I had this conversation with my wife yesterday and a friend today. At any other point in time, I would look at this and say, this is not a very nice park. This is pretty ghetto. Like, look at this thing. It's about 200 feet wide. But the brilliant thing is, this park is about 3 or 4 kilometers long. It's a few miles long. And luckily for me, the city of Osaka doesn't have much of a budget for taking care of parks. So it's pretty wild. The grass is long, the wildflowers are everywhere, which for me creates a perfect habitat for critters and things to live there. So it doesn't look like much, but this park has brought my family and I great joy, because where we are now, nothing's open. There are no shopping malls open. There are no restaurants open. What do? We got nothing to do. This park has been something to do. Now, here is one thing. And my own children have gone through a lot of stresses with online learning. It's been tough. Their friends are in a different country. They've got no other children here to play with. It's been rough on them, emotionally, socially. So every day before they start their online learning, we have decided to go for a walk. We go for a family walk. We walk in this park for half an hour or 40 minutes, and then we come home and do our online learning. There are some playgrounds in this park. We've learned about the birds in this park. I'm learning more as the weather gets warmer about the bugs in this park. And that's been bringing us happiness. These simple walks in the park. I don't really think we're a family of walkers, but we're looking at things differently now. Okay? And wow, this is now saying that my meeting is going to end in 10 minutes. So, oh my goodness. We can just join in again. If it quits, I'll just start up again and we can rejoin. Okay, just so you know, the countdown is on. So yeah, I guess maybe an abridged version. Okay, so nature goggles on, folks. Nature goggles on. In this top picture, you will see a bunch of wildflowers in long grass called fleabane. Now, a lot of people might look at this and say, those are weeds. I hate the term weeds. They're not weeds. They're wildflowers. They're important. They're beautiful. They're incredible. They have a purpose. They're a food source. Now look a bit closer, the second picture. You can see something on one of those flowers, really small. These flowers are very small. What could it be? Oh, I didn't mean to say that. It's kind of a pun. It is a bee, not a honeybee, not the kind of bee that gets all the great publicity, not a bumblebee. That is a native bee. And for those viewers who are coming to us from the United States, there are more than 4,000 species of native bees in America. And they're incredible pollinators, and they don't get the respect that they should. But that's a native bee. And if you look even closer, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 green small bugs. Those are aphids. They're not the most loved bug if you're a gardener, but there they are. So by stopping and putting on your nature goggles and really, really looking slowly at the things around you, you can see things you probably never imagined. Clover. Here's something that I learned while here and watching animals and clover. Of course, we know that clover is a great flower for pollinators. It's an important thing, but I didn't know that birds ate clover. I've learned that. Through my observations, I see that sparrows and pigeons eat clover flowers. I did not know that they were a food source for birds. That's by looking at the world in a different way. And I hope you guys will be doing this too soon. Okay, Japan, famous for cherry trees, famous for cherry blossoms. Well, this park is filled with cherry trees, but I never looked at them like I did now that I have so much time. I noticed that a lot of them looked really unhealthy. They looked sick and old and bad. So I asked myself, why? Why do these trees look so rotten? So I looked at them, I took photos, I did some research, and I asked around, and I found out that a lot of the cherry trees in the city of Osaka and in other parts of Japan suffer from a fungus called black knot. You can see in the bottom picture, kind of black chunky stuff on the tree. And then I learned that cherry trees in Eastern Canada, where I'm from, in the 1970s and 80s, were pretty much decimated by black knot. Again, looking at things in a different way. Then I learned that there's an invasive species of beetle from Taiwan and southern China that made its way to Japan, and that's killing the trees too. So again, nature goggles, slowly looking at things in a different way. Okay, so here's my daughter. She's 7, and my son and my daughter have become butterfly catchers, bug hunters. I've taught them how to catch bugs. Their dad loves bugs, and now they're starting to love them too. These are blue bottle butterflies. I think in Australia they're called blue triangles. And for anyone who plays Animal Crossing, these are butterflies that you can catch, put in your pocket, and get some money for. So we've been really spending a lot of time doing this. Okay, so I'm going to move a bit faster now, guys. I'm going to try to wrap it up in the time that we have, like only 6 minutes left. So the thing I wanted to talk about tonight, I really wanted to connect with folks. I'm saying tonight because it's almost 11 o'clock here in Japan. Even the most common aspects of nature have a lot of beauty. This is a common sparrow. It's called a Eurasian tree sparrow, and they're everywhere. They're everywhere. They're like one of the most common birds you could find. But look at this picture that I took recently. They're so cute. They're cute as a button. If you've never really looked at them, they're cute little birds. And they're actually quite grumpy, surly little birds, to be honest. They've got grumpy personalities when you really get to study them. But spending that time and slowing down and looking at them and noticing these everyday things. So very quickly, I want to share the story of Mr. Pigge. My son wanted me to tell you about Mr. Pigge. That's what he calls him. When we lived in Japan, we saw pigeons everywhere. Then we moved to Beijing, and my kids quickly realized, hey, Dad, there's no pigeons here in Beijing. We got magpies and sparrows, but we never see pigeons. When we moved to Shenzhen, something similar. So here in Japan, in Osaka, pigeons are everywhere, and our park is filled with pigeons. And my kids have fallen in love with them. And I know a lot of people think pigeons are pests, but my kids see them as this bird that's not scared of them. This little piece of nature that walks up to them looking for food, but isn't scared of them, and they can get close to and observe. Hey, Dad, how come when pigeons move their neck like this, they don't get a headache? My son was actually kind of a bit ticked off the other day when during an online class, a teacher referred to pigeons as pests. He really didn't like that. He took great offense to it. He's like, Dad, I love pigeons. They're my friends. They're everywhere here. So again, nature goggles, looking at things in a different way. Something you should all be doing. It's amazing how calming it can be. And no joke, to just actually watch a group of pigeons walking around. It's kind of neat. And when you do it every day, you start to learn things and observe things and say, hey, I didn't know they did that. Even my child, like my two children now, understand what it looks like when a male is pursuing a female during the kind of mating cycle. And they puff up their neck gets really fat, and they make loud noises, and they start chasing the girls around. And right away, my son's like, Dad, look, that pigeon's trying to get a wife. So again, different perspective. So we now have a chance in life to slow down, and we need to have more wonder as people, as grown-ups especially. We need to stop and look at things differently. This is a great time to start learning about wildflowers. And the great thing about wildflowers is no matter where you live, they're there. It could be dandelions, it could be wild poppies, daisies, clover. Learn about the birds in your neighborhood. That's one way I've been able to connect kids with nature, is through birds, because no matter where you are, there are birds. If you live in the heart of the big city or the country, there are birds. And that was a great time to learn about them. Examine a tree. Stop, look at a tree. Actually, look at a tree. Look at a tree. Like, look at the bark, stare at that bark, touch that bark, and see what's happening. There could be a line of ants walking up that tree, coming down with little baby bugs to feed their babies. There could be really interesting things. There could be spiders hiding under a crack in that bark and popping out to do something. These are things that I look for and I notice. Okay, so again, I think for the sake of everything, try to wrap this up in about 3 minutes. Wonderful resources to get you started. These are things I want to share with you that I think are fantastic to get anyone into that kind of nature journey. Okay, so the National Audubon Facebook page is brilliant, and wow, they have stepped up during this time of COVID-19. There are free bird drawing lessons by David Sibley, who's one of the great bird artists. There are incredible Zoom shows to introduce people to birding and connect them with nature. There are videos about gardening. How can you make, what kind of flowers and plants can you put in your garden to attract birds and pollinators? So facebook.com National Audubon Society is fantastic. It's wonderful. And by the way, I'm going to put a recording of this whole session on my YouTube channel, which I'll be sharing a lot on Twitter. Okay. Wow, it says I have less than a minute left. Okay. The Cornell Lab of Ornithology. So that's facebook.com/CornellBirds. Fantastic resource. That one as well. Check that out. On YouTube, Birds of North America with Jason Ward. Do a search for that. Just search Birds of North America. This is a great YouTube series. He's a charismatic and knowledgeable host. Great professional videos. Birds of North America with Jason Ward. I know Adam Hill is watching right now. He's a big proponent of iNaturalist. This is a great citizen science app. It can identify birds, insects, flowers, trees, mammals, reptiles, even more. Download this, it's free. Take a picture of something, and it can, for the most part, identify it for you. Okay, sorry for the rapid fire here, guys, but the technical difficulties caused a problem. You can contact me on Twitter at any time at MadForMaple. That's my main Twitter feed. I'm on Instagram, not so common on there. No, She's in Wildlife. I don't use it as much as I should. You can email me at makingbetter.teachers@gmail.com. But Twitter is always a great place to find me at MadForMaple. I'm pretty prolific there. And again, I will be putting this on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Busan, B-U-S-A-N, Kevin, Busan Kevin. And I will be sharing all of these resources again on Twitter. I want to thank you guys for joining me tonight. I really apologize for the first 15 minutes of me not able to connect with you because of Zoom issues, but we all know when we're doing online learning, Zoom is a problem sometimes. It doesn't always work. Again, I want to say thank you to everyone who participated, who came here. I will be, again, sharing this on my YouTube.